What's up guys, welcome to my next DIY bike project. I'm Jonas and today I'm gonna give you a quick tour of my paint booth. But before we start, for more DIY bike projects and inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a good thumbs up to support the channel. Just a while ago I was going to paint my bike frame, so I needed a paint booth. I decided to build one, DIY style. In this video I will give you a little why you need a paint booth, what to think about before you start your build, and how I built my paint booth. Okay, so I build bikes and sometimes I even paint them, like the gravel bike build. If you haven't seen it, check it out. When you build a paint booth for spray paint, you have a number of things to consider. Spray paint leaves a lot of dust and other chemicals from the aerosol cans, and you don't want that all over your garage or your basement or wherever you are. So the first thing is to protect your workshop. You also want a place where you can reduce the dust and particles that can ruin your paint job. Now this is where a professional paint booth with fans and filters and all that stuff is awesome, but expensive. My paint booth, however, it's not that fancy, but keeping it clean and doing regular maintenance, it's definitely better than to spray in the garage or outside for that matter. Finally, aerosol spray paint is very flammable and it's also very toxic to breathe in. So you want a good ventilation to avoid any risk of explosions or toxic poisoning. Apart from that, there are many things to consider, but these are the most important in my opinion. Now, before you start, you need a place to build your paint booth on. You want a quite big space so that you can move around the frame and cover all the angles. You also want to have access to fresh air, like a window, a door, or a garage door, or something like that, so that you can ventilate out any fumes after you're done with your paint job. You also want to consider the temperature and the moisture in the paint booth. You should have about 20 degrees centigrade in your paint booth. Too cold increases the viscosity of the paint and it makes it thick and it's harder to spray evenly. It also affects the adhesiveness of the paint and it will make it dry slower. If you don't have access to a place where the temperature is that high, a little trick is to put the spray can in a bucket of hot water for about 20 minutes before you start to paint. If possible, also keep the frame in a warm place before you start. In that way you can reduce the viscosity and you can increase the bonding between the paint and the frame. Before I decided to build a proper paint booth, I was experimenting with plastic sheets that I taped to the ceiling and I was trying to make that work, but it kept falling down and it didn't become big enough for me to move around and stuff like that. So I was never quite satisfied with that solution. So I decided to build a more spacious booth that would give me the possibility to move around the frame and one that would not fall down on my project. Now I wanted a paint booth that would serve my purposes, no more, no less. I didn't care for looks, I didn't care for fancy, I just wanted it to be as cheap as possible and still do the job. I just recently tore down a shed in the garden and I was able to reuse some of the wood from there. I was also able to reuse some of the angle irons and brackets. The screws I use is from my stash of odd and reusable screws from different projects around the house. So most of the material I was able to reuse from before. Now the space I had planned to use had its difficulties. For one, the space I can't use this exclusively for the paint booth. So I needed to build one that was easy to assemble and disassemble. Further, the place I chose was halfway in front of my automatic garage door that winds up into the ceiling. So I had limited space above the paint booth and I was unable to attach it to the ceiling. So apart from the material I had reused, I had to buy eccentric locks, paperboard, round wood stick, plastic sheets. And the dimensions of my booth is height 193 centimeters, width 180 centimeters and depth 187 centimeters. I decided to build 3 modules that I engaged with eccentric locks in the middle. Then I placed stop locks on the inside to support them from wiggling and falling apart. The fourth side of the booth is just a beam that holds the booth together and provides an attachment for a loose plastic sheet that faces the garage door. The ceiling was built with 2 round wood sticks that I winded plastic sheet around and then I just rolled it out. And then I just used a staple gun to shoot the plastic sheets into the modules. And I placed the whole thing on top of the paperboard that I already taped to the floor. I can now assemble and disassemble the booth alone in a very short time. For maintenance, I change the plastic sheets and the paperboards in between projects. And when I'm in the middle of a project, I use a vacuum cleaner to clean out the booth in between every layer of paint, just to reduce any kind of dust in there. In the booth, I keep a small side table to use for putting like tape rolls, spray cans and stuff like that on it. And I also have my fan to ventilate out any fumes and dust after every shot of spray. So that's my paint booth. I hope I have inspired you and I hope that you build a paint booth just as nice or even better than mine, of course, better than mine. Now, if you want to see me use it, you can check out the video of my gravel bike build in the link. If you like this video, give it a good thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment in the section below. What's your thoughts? What would you do different from me? See you in the next video. Cheers.